Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to History. My name is Proxy, and today we'll be taking a lovely walkthrough guide of the next period in the timeline. Just to recap, there are four main civilizations surfaced on the face of the planet. There are the bears. These are the land-dwelling evolved form of the dolphins, if we can recall before. They were incapable of swimming, so they moved on land. There are the humans. Now, right now, they haven't quite reached the point where they have all four limbs. Remember, they have to deal with the fact that they are primarily formed of a easily disrupted gelatinous substance, which is commonly weak to water. There are the fungus. They are the currently most dominant species on the planet. They control the economy, the military, politics, the government, and there are bugs. A lot of them. The bugs' main advantage is the numbers thing. They have surprisingly been able to proliferate to an extraordinary degree. So, as one might expect, with 4 different species on one planet, that's simply too many. Right now, if you can recall, or maybe you can't because you don't have the mental capacity to do so, there is less than 4 species on the planet. Considerably less, in fact. I'd say there's at least less by 99%. So, of course, World War II. This war is unique and different than World War I, because unlike World War I, which took place before history, World War II takes place after history. Well, no, not after history, during history, when history is happening. History began slightly before this. I have covered that in the previous video. As is seen in the political diagram, or military diagram, I suppose, the two forces are in technically one could argue there are 4 factions, but during this period of history, there were 2 primary groups, I believe, if I can recall correctly. 1 second. Yes, okay, so the dolphins and the humans gathered together, both being of aquatic origin. They had the proper ties. Then you had the other set, which was the bugs and the fungus, because they happened to have been they were part of the outcome of World War I before. Collectively, due to this divide between aquatic and terrestrial life, there was a clear need for concern, and they decided to fight each other. And again, as shown in the diagram, the steam, which it was emitted from, what was his name? Hold on. Russell's teapot. So Russell's teacup over there is currently heating up the face of the planet, causing worldwide, global water evaporation, which is terrible for the aquatic climate. And you want to know who's sponsoring Russell's little teacup experiment? Well, it's very obvious, of course. It's the one group that controls the entire economy, the fungi. So, because of this clear economic problem, there is a need for war, and one could have seen this coming like a mile away, but they didn't, because you usually don't see world wars until after they happen. So, immediately the alliances begin. The fungus and the bugs group together and form this little union known as Germany. This is an effective... it isn't really effective. The primary problem is that the fungus and the bugs, though both large in number, are not as cooperative as they had initially hoped. See, the bugs are actually not very intelligent, and the fungus are very intelligent but not very mobile. So what usually tends to happen is the fungus, giving the commands, tell the bugs what to do, and the bugs go around to do the completely wrong thing. Bugs are notorious for having poor hierarchical structures, as we know, because no bug that I know of anyway has managed to perform adequately under periods of long durational stress. So, of course, although the humans and the bears, although the humans and the bears are collectively grouped together in such a manner that they are not nearly the most capable of a group, they can massively overcome the bugs, and the fungus can't defend. Until, and this is actually a very smart play from the Bugs part. They developed the hit Disney Channel sitcom Cory in the House. The unique part about this sitcom is that when the human forces watched it, they tended to not do anything else because of the sheer captivating and enthralling nature of its content. As one of the pinnacles of modern entertainment and entertainment history in general, it subsequently managed to create a sense of individualism, or rather a lack thereof, among the human species. What this meant is that the bears were left to fend for themselves against the bug onslaught, and again, the bugs, although stupid, have more numbers than there are bears. Or at least that would have been the case if not for the bears' quick thinking. Introducing Zoroastrianism. Now, what is Zoroastrianism? I don't really know, but they managed to use it somehow. I assume it was sort of a propaganda campaign against the Cory in the House show. Basically, by preemptively preventing the humans from being able to watch the show through the use of other forms of media, such as religion, they were effectively able to prevent the corruption of the human race and thereby overcome this deficit. So ultimately, in the end, as the end of World War II, I suppose, the fungi and bug populations were completely decimated and nearly wiped out the Earth. Not completely, but for the most part, they were placed into conditions of inferiority, which are still in place at this present time, although they do make various insurgent attempts, which none of which are ultimately successful. So now we have to get to the end of history. History didn't last very long, and I'll tell you why. It's because although now the bears and the humans have control over the face of the planet, they have to deal with a little problem. The problem is that humans are really, really bad at everything. See, for one, the Cory in the House was then banned worldwide, and this was fine, except for the fact that the humans, for some reason, still wanted something like Cory in the House. So someone, despite the fact that the entire world is now in peace and harmony, decided, hey, let's make anime. And this is where this comes from. You may not have heard about that, and you may not have known that, but it is the exact deficit that causes the downfall of the entirety of civilization, and subsequently is the catalyst for the end of history. See, the very fact that the humans had initiated and created the concept of anime was so enraging to nearly every other species on the planet that World War II had to happen a second time. This was even worse than the first time, because not only did it mean the humans had to face every species instead of just the two with collisions with the other, they also had to deal with the fact that they had created anime, which was subsequently weakening their own abilities. So, with everyone railed up against them, and this actually did provide some unity among the other groups that may or may not have been hostile, such as the fungi and the bears having been previously enemies, as I said before, the humans had no choice. They had to escape to space, and a great number of the humans did escape to space. Not all of them. The rest were, I wouldn't say killed, but they certainly weren't treated very nicely. They were kept in cages for the rest of their lives. The ones who escaped, horribly malformed. Well, I wouldn't say malformed. If you compare them to how they were in our previous diagram, if you just take a look, and you look back, I would say they have absolutely been just ravaged, completely destroyed, absolutely marred beyond belief. And now these ones are dying in space, biding their time. You'll see them later. So now, is everything peaceful again? No, of course not. Introducing a new human. This human, the humans lie in space for thousands of years, and this is great until, well, it isn't great for the humans. They're biding their time trying to figure something out. And one of them, a little individual known as John Time, decides, hey, I'm going to invent this thing called time. And after he does this, he figures, hey, I'm going to walk on time, and he goes back in time. This is where the concept of time travel came from. Now, what is interesting and unique about this is, though inventing the concept of time travel now, the concept of time travel was also present before. If you may have been paying attention, this is time travel. Now, how did this happen? Because John Time also was the person who invented anime. It is, as one could say, an Ouroboros loop caused simply by the whims of causality itself, and by that virtue, the Second World War II happened solely as a result of itself. And this is too much for history to handle. History has tried, and it just says, you know what? No, this is dumb. This is stupid. I give up, and history ends. So what's next? What happens after history? Introducing music. That's right. Since there's no more history, we have to find other ways to bide our time. So people start making music. The first of the great musical composers is this man named Beethoven. Now, the thing about Beethoven is he, well, though not usually a quadruped, he sometimes is. And when he is, oh, you better believe he's having fun rucka-the-muck adventures with children in somewhere in the United States of America. I have not seen any of the films. He's also blind, I believe. Yeah, blind. He can't see. That's why he's so good at making music, because music is sound. Yeah, so that's his deal. And so he creates this genre of music known as pop music. It's called pop because it's often known for causing eardrum ruptures and fissures, which results in fluid draining from the excess of the ear. And typically upon this event, the people would describe a loud popping sound because their eardrums exploded. His reign as musical head is eventually threatened by the arrival of a new figure on the scene. Eminem. This is the man who makes country music. And the thing with country music is, unlike Beethoven's pop music, which makes your eardrums rupture in two, country music makes your entire ear fall off. And this is much more pleasurable to the people because they don't really like music all that much. And this makes it so that they can't hear it even if their eardrums heal. So he starts gaining traction. And it's a battle between the two, Beethoven versus Eminem. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? Well, I'll tell you. It's actually neither of them. Introducing the Thrive OST. This is a soundtrack developed by a hit indie game known as Thrive, in which you play as a single eukaryotic or prokaryotic organism floating through the vast cosmos of the waters of some planet somewhere, eating clouds and reproducing via cellular mitosis. In order to create music for this game, it was required to produce music, and the thing with music is, though dominated by Beethoven and Eminem, if a person's ears came off, they would not be able to hear the cells making cell sounds, which is what cells do. So it was decided, let's make music that doesn't make your ears fall off. So they made music that made everything else fall off, and now you're just ears, and that's how it happened. Turned out this music was so popular, Eminem and Beethoven listened to it, a mistake, mind you, never listened to music ever, and they died, and that meant that there was a vacuum gap for anyone who was able to listen to music and not die. And you know what? There was one person who did this. Hatsune Miku. Now the question is, well, how could they do this? It's simple, because if we remember Mr. John Time here inventing the concept of anime, it literally was not killable by biological means because it is a psychological disease. And because it is a psychological disease, this meant that Hatsune Miku did not suffer any biological drawbacks from listening to the Thrive OST or Eminem or Beethoven, and thereby was able to create music that did not have biological side effects, solely psychological side effects, which ultimately resulted in the decadence of the modern man and the ruining of global culture and mass media. And this was a major problem. Why? Because this meant music was going to die too, and the world said, well, listen, I have a bit of a problem. History just left the building, music is dominating, and now music is going to explode, and I can't manage to handle that because anime is corrupting everything. We have to get rid of it. So it had to start history again, and this was a long, drawn-out scheme, so you can't just start history. If we recall, the first time history started, it needed World War I. So the logical next step is to get it back, we need World War I to happen again. Introducing Pangea. See, the species that I mentioned before, they're still around, and though the humans have escaped into space, or maybe they haven't because time travel is around, and I can't tell you where on the timeline we are because things are getting completely out of hand. Pangea here is a new civilization developed as a union between Germany and Czechoslovakia, if you recall from the first video. Collectively, with all the species united under one common branch of government, they have to find themselves one lovely common enemy, introducing the dinosaurs. Where did the dinosaurs come from? Does it even matter at this point? They are made of bones. Bones is what they are made of. You know why they're made of bones? Because they descended out of the skies where the bones lie. You look up, you see clouds. What color are clouds? White. What color are bones? White. Therefore, bones are clouds, or clouds are bones, and clouds are bones, and they collectively managed to rain down and create dinosaurs. Ooh, that's where they came from. I just answered the question. So the dinosaurs have to face off against Pangea. Why? Because history demands it, despite not existing and existing, because it hasn't actually stopped to exist, because in the timeline, if we recall, history does not stop existing at any point in the historical timeline, but in fact outside of the historical timeline, which is where we are now. We are not in history, we are outside of history, but not before history and not after history, because in those two periods of time are different videos, and that's part 1, and the other one's probably like part 5, and you deal with that fact. So right now, dinosaurs, Pangea, blah blah blah, here comes World War I the second time. They wear their uniforms similar to the Revolutionary War, but not really, because there is no revolution. The revolution cannot happen because it is impossible for something to revolve without motion, and motion indicates time. And the thing with time is the time did not exist until John Time invented it, but because John Time invented it in the several thousand years in the future of history, which we are not currently in, mind you, this alright, full disclosure, I honestly have not much of an idea on what happens at this point. It gets okay, let's try to break this down piece by piece. So, you've got history, you've got what's not history. What's not history is this. What's right here, this is not history. Why is this a problem? Because this is history part 2, the video which covers history. Except, we haven't covered history because history's gone. So, the World War I happens again, and it didn't cause history last time, but whatever caused history to begin from World War I happens again, and it's probably the government. In fact, no, it is the government. The government does do it, because you know how history began last time? It was the government. I said they were there from the start. They were there from the start, but no earlier than that. That was the origin of history, the government. And with World War I happening again, the government reappears, and there you go. History is back. And that's it. That's the end of history. Again, not really, though. I'm not going to bother to figure that it's going to end 3 more times. Yeah, I just want you to know that before we go any further. This is only going to get worse. Or better. Or maybe it won't get at all because it doesn't happen. Because this didn't happen. And it did, but it didn't happen now, and it didn't happen then either, and it also may or may not be happening in the future. That is history. This has been history. I think it was history. If it wasn't history, feel free to tell me. Happy Halloween.